I'd like to call to order the June 3rd, 2025 regular meeting of the Chino Valley Planning and Zoning Commission. As our alternate steps up to the plate. We have a quorum and a full board tonight with our alternate. Commissioner Peasy, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to take care of that right now. Okay. So I'm going to take a second here and offer a blessing over this meeting, as we had meetings to start with before the meeting, and I got kicked out of my usual lineup. So if you all will give us a moment. Thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to serve our community. We thank you, Lord, for the beautiful hard rainstorm we received today. This water is precious to us. We thank you, Lord, for these good folks sitting up here doing their duty for their town. And we ask your blessings and wisdom on this meeting tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move forward to item C, which is the consent calendar, which consists of the approval of the March 4th, 2025 regular meeting minutes and the approval of the May 6th, 2025 study session. Does anybody have any issue with the consent calendar?
No.
Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to accept them.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. So we're going to move forward to item D1, which is TA 2025-03, which is a request to amend the Town of Chino Valley Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 154, Chapter 3, by creating an agricultural residential 36-acre minimum AR 36 district. Has anybody spoken to anybody outside of this meeting tonight about this subject?
No.
All right.
Okay,
Okay, staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have before you a text amendment to add back in the AR 36 district. In 2020, the then director surveyed all of the properties in the community, and none of them were zoned AR 36. So along with a couple of other amendments, he added the removal of this district. Then along comes the general plan, and the general plan said that it was a good idea to have this district. It's for larger parcels. It offers opportunities for other uses other than houses. And it allows things that maybe sometimes would take more parking or bigger areas. Because the lots are bigger, they have to be at least 36 acres in size. They have the ability to buffer on their own site any impacts to neighbors. Many of the uses listed in here are also conditional use permits, which means it's not an outright approval. What they have to do is submit for a conditional use permit to you with a site plan and explain how they're going to do the things that they want to do. The draft code went to the zoning committee. They took a look at it, debated some things, added some things, removed some items. You guys had it at your work session in May, and now it is before you for us to reinstitute this zoning district. So that is staff's report, and we are open to discussion and public hearing.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for town staff concerning this ordinance change?
No.
Okay. We're going to open up this portion of the meeting for public comment on this item only. If you would like, you are welcome to step up to the podium. You'll state your name. I'm setting the rules for the next item as well. Please be concise, be polite. Don't be repetitive. If you agree with somebody that's spoken before, just say, I get up and agree with this person. And you have 3 minutes to say your piece, and then you'll be asked to step down, and the next person will be able to speak. So having said that, would anybody like to make a public comment on this particular item on the agenda? All right, so we'll close the public portion of the meeting. Going back to questions for the staff, I'm assuming there is none from the commission. All right, we're closing the public hearing on that part of it, and I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve text amendment TA 2025-03 as reflected in attachment A, subject to the staff report and information provided during this hearing.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any conversation? All right, I'm just going to call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, so we're going to move forward to item D2, which is CUP 2025-01. This is a request by Prospect 14 on behalf of Running W Ranch LLC and Wilkinson Investments LLC for the approval of a conditional use permit to allow for construction of a 284-acre solar facility across two parcels, 306-02-300H and 306-01-003H, located at 3245 Jerome Junction, Chino Valley, Arizona. Has anybody spoken to anybody about this item on the agenda outside of this meeting tonight?
No.
Okay, well, I have spoken with staff and with a couple of town council members, just so that's out there. Looking for a staff presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the site is two parcels, but the larger parcel actually extends all the way up to the section line. So it's a 642 acre site, of which 281 acres are proposed for the Wilkinson family solar farm. In 2014, 200 acres of this site were approved for a solar farm. They had a 1-year time frame. With their conditional use permit, it expired without construction beginning. In 2022, the Wilkinsons approached the town to review their proposed solar farm. At that time, staff had proposed a text amendment that revised the open space district. Some of you were on the commission then, and you might remember, to allow solar farms. At that point, the P&Z recommended that the ordinance not move forward to change the open space to allow solar farms, but instead directed staff to wait until the general plan was in place, because we were in the middle of the general plan process. So staff waited for didn't move forward with that, and waited for the general plan to be completed. Actually, we worked on the general plan, so we didn't sit back and wait for something to happen. We were working on the general plan. The general plan was approved by council. General plan was approved by Planning Commission and Council in June of 2022, and it went to a vote of the public in November of 2023, and went to a vote of the public in November of 2023. After the vote of the public, the Wilkinson family came forward again and said, okay, we're ready to move forward with our conditional use permit for our solar farm. Well, in the general plan, it gave a pathway for the development of an ordinance for the protections of the town in the general plan. So we asked them to wait again, and we created a staff advisory committee on the solar, who worked from February of 24 to October of 24. Staff finished our work on the ordinance and moved it forward to the Planning Commission. You guys had a public hearing in November of 24 and then in January of 25. The solar ordinance was then heard by the council in March of 2025. And at that point, that ordinance was not approved by council. After that happened, the Wilkinsons scheduled a pre-application meeting and proposed to move their project forward. Morally, ethically, and legally, it is the right thing to do to allow the Wilkinsons to bring their proposal forward. They have waited patiently for a number of years to be heard for their project. So we are hearing their case today. We held, this process went through our standard process. We held a neighborhood meeting in this building on May 15th. We did get a letter from a neighbor outlining concerns, and with that letter, staff was able to provide a number of conditions to add to the CUP because we did not have an ordinance to rely on. So when the neighbor brought up issues, we added conditions to address those concerns. So our list of conditions went from a very short list to a full page. Staff is recommending that the commission hold a public hearing. You listen to the applicant and the speakers, and then forward the case on to the town council for a decision. The applicant will speak on detail about their proposal for their project, how it's going to work, how everything lays out, and that will be where you can ask questions specific to their solar development.
All right, thank you. Do we have questions for staff from the zoning commission?
I have a quick one, please.
Yes, sir.
On the map that you had outlined it on the two parcels.
Yes.
So on that one there, which portion of, are we talking about? Parts of both or just that lower left-hand section?
All the crosshatched is proposed for it. The section above this
Okay, there we go.
is
Couldn't
Jessica, if
see
you
on
go to that map right there, so you
Okay.
can see the section above it that isn't being occupied by the solar farm, that's being left open,
Okay.
being proposed for that. And you can see APS in the far
Mhm.
left south corner.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. So we would like to have the applicant come up and speak. If you choose, you're not required to speak.
Good evening, Commissioners. Yes,
Gotta
we
pull a microphone right
Yep,
down
don't
to
pull
your
that
I'm
down.
face.
short.
Just talk
Thank
straight
you.
into it, please.
Okay. Okay. Do you want me to click through, or I can just tell you when to click to? Okay. Perfect. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I am Sarah from Prospect 14, and we're presenting the Wilkinson Family Solar Project. I'll try and keep this brief because, Lori, thank you for the great introduction and kind of the history of what
can't
we've
hear
done
her.
so far.
I can't hear her.
You can't hear?
Pull it down closer and speak straight into it.
Can you hear me
They
now?
don't work
There
that
you go.
good
Okay, great.
sometimes.
Okay, well, I'll just jump right in. I'll keep this brief. So to start off, Prospect 14, our business model is to work with landowners to maximize the use of their land, receive a steady income, and contribute to renewable energy production through solar leases. A little bit about the landowners and the property that they're working with on this project. So the Wilkinson family and their relatives have been in the area since the early 1900s. And through this project, they'd like to continue owning tracts of land and living and prospering here. They believe that renewable energy is vital to Chino Valley's future. And as Lori mentioned, in 2014, Vicki Wilkinson put a tremendous amount of effort into working on a similar project on this same portion of family land, which did get conditional use approval at that time. However, the initial solar company did not construct the project. There's a lot of reasons why projects don't move forward. So it's understandable and happens all the time. So Vicky, she recently passed away and left running with ranch with her children. And the family is aiming to utilize the income generated from this project to assist with costs associated with large tracts of ranch land. And in 2022, the family was directed by the town to kind of wait on our application through the various regulatory changes and general plan updates that you've gone through in the last couple of years. A little bit about the project. So this one is a smaller scale project, especially for Arizona. It's going to be a photovoltaic solar and battery energy storage system, which will be about 281 acres. It's located along North Old Home Manor Drive, right next to the existing APS substation, which makes it ideal for a project like this. It's a low impact passive use of the land, which is in accordance with town land use objectives. And it does have a signed interconnection agreement that is currently in suspension and in good standing, which is one of the major milestones for a project like this. So I won't read this entire slide to you, but why solar and why solar in Chino Valley? So Arizona is one of the sunniest states with a desert climate, contributing to minimal cloud cover and rainfall. APS and TEP have pretty aggressive carbon-free electricity goals, and the project supports state goals as well and provides tax benefits to the county and Chino Valley School District. Some good things about projects like this in comparison to other developments, they do not contribute to population or infrastructure density, so it won't require new or deplete existing housing and food supplies. It doesn't contribute to long-term increased traffic or wear and tear on critical infrastructure or roadways. They are not water-intensive facilities. They don't produce any light pollution, so contributing to the dark open skies of Chino Valley. No noise pollution as well. And it's very low profile, so minimal impact to views, and with the zero emissions and just the technology used, it has very low environmental impact. So this is the proposed design. So while the ordinance did not move through earlier this year, we did kind of take notes from the ordinance because I thought that they really protected residents well. So we kept the larger setbacks. We centrally located the BESS facility to the middle of the array. And then, as Lori was saying, we are going to be agreeing to all of the conditions imposed by the proposed CUP. We did have a neighborhood meeting. One interesting thing about the meeting was we expanded the radius for notifications because there were only 2 or 3 properties that weren't either commercial or municipal within the traditional 300-foot boundary. So we opened that up just to make sure more residents were involved. And after the meeting, we did have a few landowners who signed a support letter, which we can provide to you. And these are residents that live within half a mile of the project or the proposed project. We did get a lot of good feedback from this meeting, and we will be using it to potentially and hopefully provide some community benefits that were expressed to us that could go along well with this project. This is just a list of some of the conditions that we would agree to should this move forward. Not required by the code, but would be part of the conditional use permit. Oops. And these are the community benefits that we kind of gathered after talking to community members. We have set aside a portion of our revenue and have a pretty substantial budget for new facilities. I think, there's enough here to do one or more of these potential benefits, some of which could be a new pickleball court in memory of Vicki Wilkinson. A big one that people mentioned over and over was landscape improvements to the Peavine Trail. And then through the pre-app process, we actually found a really cool idea, and it was to do a pilot rainwater research project on a portion of the site to potentially research how you could collect rainwater from the solar panels and recharge aquifers. So making it more of like a dual use first project of its kind in Arizona that could potentially, spread and benefit the town or benefit the state. Here's also a summary of a professional tax analysis that we did for the project. The most substantial number here would be the Chino Valley School District. And just a couple, closing remarks that I want to make before I finish my presentation is, at the end of the day, what we're presenting is a project that a local family has been working on and waiting on for over a decade, that the town asked them patiently to wait to move forward on, and they did. A smaller scale project that's tucked away in a location designated by the general plan as a good place for solar. This is not Draconis. This is not a project that will send power to California. This is a project that lets a family exercise their property rights and provide income to their family. I implore you to consider this proposal from the lens of your current zoning laws and not from the lens of passionate people who do not live within town limits. And I urge you to let this proposal move forward to the council so they can decide whether it's a good project for Chino and the last of its kind, essentially, given recent events with ordinances that I've been following. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Does anybody on the commission have questions? Yes, ma'am.
If this is connecting to the grid at the Salt River Project station there on the corner, why do you need the battery storage units?
So it's connected to the Old Home Manor substation, and storage would provide the ability, the panels themselves only work during the day, so this would provide the ability to provide power for longer and help stabilize the grid.
Because I think that's the most people's fear is of the batteries catching on fire, the chemicals that could be wasted from them. So if it's connected to the grid at the substation, I don't see why you need the batteries.
The batteries are actually one of the bigger parts that help the grid remain stable with the introduction of renewables.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I have a couple
Vice
questions.
Chair?
How long would this conditional use be for?
I believe the approval, if it were to be approved, is for a year, similar to the other conditional use permit, so we would need to start construction within the year.
No, the conditional use permit is for the solar farm, not just the construction of the solar farm. How long would the conditional use permit be for the solar farm?
That's a good question.
How long do you want the solar farm to be active?
Okay, gotcha. So I believe our lease with the landowners is 25 to 40 years, depending on extensions. So up to 40 years.
Okay, because if this does go forward and gets approved and it's 25 years, that means you're going to have to come back. So maybe not you after 25 years, but
Right.
someone will have to come back after 25 years if it gets extended again. So
Yeah, so we would probably ask for the full.
it would be
Full
for
40.
40 years then.
Yes, sir.
Okay. There was, in the presentation, the written presentation, there was a security fence being put around the site.
Yes.
And then there's also a comment about a Jeep trail having access. How does that happen with a fence around the site?
That would be on the other portion of the parcel, not through the project. Yeah.
And are there plans in the future to develop the balance of the 690 acres? Because, again, you're only using 281 acres now, but the approval will be for the entire site, which would be...
Absolutely. Yeah, I do not know of any other plans to develop the rest of the site.
Okay. Part of the written presentation has a 16-foot wide road, and it says it's wide enough to accommodate two-way vehicle traffic. Is that a public road or a private road?
No, that would be the site access, and I don't think we meant to put two-way traffic. It should be sufficient for fire vehicles
Yeah.
with
because-
turnarounds.
Because the written report says two-way traffic. You
Yeah,
can't
no,
get two-way
that's
traffic
not
on
correct.
16
Sorry about
feet.
that.
Because normally your travel lanes are 12
No,
foot.
that was an error.
Okay. During the decommissioning, it says that the access road may need to be reinforced. I take it that's because you're going to be moving everything out of the site.
Correct.
Well, it's the same weight going into the site, so what about the damage to the road as you move in? Again, working on the premise that this gets approved. Is there anything planned to reestablish the road after it gets damaged with all the heavy equipment that you bring in?
Is that the town road or county road, or is that the roads within the project? Because I think what we were talking about is the roads within the project, so the gravel roads that they would be hauling equipment in and out of that we have.
Well, it does have, it says access road, but it was kind of vague as to is it the
We-
public road or the private road?
Yeah, we usually call the access road the roads that are within the project.
Okay.
Yeah.
The wildlife, how is that going to be addressed? Because I believe that some of that area is used for fawning for the pronghorn.
Yeah, so we are consulting with statewide groups and agencies, and so they will be giving their recommendations on mitigation measures if needed. I know Lori has been, in contact with them through the study of the solar ordinance, and we have already, as part of the pre-application process, have at least submitted to Game and Fish, and they will be giving their recommendations.
Okay.
And that's something that we always do, and with every project is we consult with the necessary agencies that overlook that kind of environmental impact.
Okay. Again, your presentation showed that Chino Valley School is going to get $4 to $5 million over the life of the project, which is a 25, 40-year project. The town doesn't look like it's getting anything, and I'd like you to have some discussion on with development service as to some kind of a fee for Chino Valley.
Yeah, I know that was mentioned through the solar ordinance process, and that's definitely something that we're open to, especially given the tax structure here locally, because I know the town doesn't have property tax, it goes to the county, and that's something, solar projects do all the time. They'll do pilot agreements, payment in lieu of taxes. It's just a matter of what's legal, because I know that came up in part of the discussion. So, if there's something that the town recommends and is okay with moving forward, we're absolutely open to that.
I would just ask that you talk to development service about it.
Absolutely.
Done?
I have
Commissioner
one.
Peasy?
On your presentation, you talked about the two, I think it was APS, not SRP, and I believe the other one was TEP.
TEP, yeah.
Who is that?
That's a smaller utility in Arizona, I believe.
Who
But
is it?
APS would be Tucson Electric Power, sorry.
So it'd be going to Tucson Electric Power besides APS.
No, ours is APS. Those were just two examples of utilities in the state that have renewable energy goals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yep.
That's all I had for her.
I do.
Yes, sir.
The property is 690 acres?
Roughly.
You're leasing in the entire property?
No, we have an option over the whole property, but at the end of the day, the lease would only need around 281 acres or so.
Yes, sir.
How did you calculate your finances? Like 4 million going to the school district?
So
Is
we,
that over 25 years, 40 years?
I believe that was over 25, and we had a tax professional provide that assessment. They were formerly Altus. They're called Ryan now. They were acquired by Ryan, so I am definitely not a tax expert, so I can't go too much farther into that and how it was broken down. But we did commission that.
4 million a year is 4 million over the course of
Correct.
25 years.
Commissioner Zamudio?
Yes. Can you tell me what kind of fire suppression systems you usually use in the solar?
Yeah,
That's
so
okay, development.
I actually have a little thing I can read here. So the type of containers that we would use, they're roughly 20 feet, and they have 4-step fire suppression systems within each one. So they self-contain, any threat of fire. And so it's an outdoor non-walk-in battery storage system. We chose InterX, but there's many like this. So, we don't have the final selection, but we would choose something very, very similar to this. And so they have detection, explosion control, fire extinguishing functions. And the strategy is, like I said, 4 levels. The first one's an alarm. The second one's ventilation and smoke exhaust to prevent deflagration. And the third level is aerosol that would be released to extinguish the initial fire. And then the fourth level is a dry pipe spraying to control the spread.
So, as being familiar with panels being caught on fire, when they do burn, say it doesn't protect it, what other recourse do you have? Do you have a second backup to that?
Not through the panels themselves. It would just be for the batteries.
Just for the batteries?
Yep.
Do you have on any of the projects you had in the past, do you have a area where you have available sand and dirt mixture to put on the actual panels if they do burn?
I don't know that we've done that in the past, but if that's a condition, we'd definitely be open to looking into that.
Okay. Have you guys done a study on the burn of the panels and how long it takes for them once they burn, how long they take to kind of cool down?
I have not. I don't think our company has commissioned a study like that.
It's about 3 days, but just an average, give or take. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? So you said that the power wouldn't be going to California as part of your statement. If you're hooked into the APS grid, is that not also hooked into the California grid and really nobody knows where the power winds up?
I definitely can't tell you the exact locations, but because it's 69 kV, there's much less likelihood that it would. And then also part of our financial model would need to include wheeling charges to the California ISO, which is not what we proposed in our recent proposal to APS, which they have shortlisted for a power purchase agreement. So that was not calculated in part of that structure. So that's why I made that statement.
Okay, so but in reality, once it goes into the grid, it's in the grid wherever that winds up being sent. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
You would have to step it up to move it farther, which is expensive to do.
So we approved many years ago a solar farm at the south end of town that did not have a battery system in it, and it was privately held, and then APS stepped in through their utility agreements with the town and took that project over and then installed batteries in it. So what's to prevent this project from getting built and then a few years later APS stepping in and taking over the project so it's not locally owned or controlled, it's controlled by APS, and also has the opportunity to be developed for the full extent of the property?
So we, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, we just went through APS's RFP process. It's a request for proposals, and so they're looking for smaller generators that they would then incorporate into their grid. We did submit an option for a BTA, which is a build transfer agreement, or a PPA. They chose the PPA. I think it's
What
just
is what?
power purchase agreement. So that would be a contract with APS to purchase the power while it was not owned by them. So they preferred that.
Yeah.
Actually.
So the next question is, that might be the case now, but 2 years from now you could enter into a new agreement where they would actually purchase the farm and bring it under their envelope of the agreement with the town of Chino.
I believe to expand on the facilities, they would need permits with you all, correct?
Yes, they would have to have some sort of permit, I'm
Okay.
assuming.
Yeah.
Am I speaking correctly there?
Yeah, so this CUP is only for the 281 acres that they are proposing. Anything more than that would have to come back.
So you could prevent that if you did not want
Just to
that.
clarify, because that was one of my questions for you later. It's just for the 81 acres. If Project 14 or Prospect 14 wants to expand upon that and add another 300 acres, it would have to come through the town at another cup if there was an ordinance.
Yes.
Thank you.
If there was an ordinance in place that said the town of Chino Valley doesn't allow solar facilities, would they be allowed to expand this?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Thank you. We may call you back up.
Please do. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move forward to the public comments portion of the meeting on this particular item. I'll review the rules again. Please step up to the microphone after I call on you. Do we have papers filled out? Great. That works even better. Thank you. So I'll call you up to the podium. Please step up to the mic, state your name. Please speak clearly into the microphone. You can see that they have trouble sometimes hearing people. And you'll get 3 minutes to speak. Please be concise, be polite, don't be repetitive. And at that point, we'll start forward. Shelley Gordon. I know
Good
you,
evening,
Shelley.
Chairman
How
and
are you?
Commission. I am not Shelley Gordon, but I did receive an email today from Shelley Gordon who requested it be read into the public record at the meeting tonight, so I am going to do that on her behalf. Dear Town Manager Denemy, I would appreciate your passing on my letter to support the Chino Valley Planning and Zoning Commissioners for the 52.5 milliwatt / acre solar array with integrated 52.25 WMW / 315 battery storage project under consideration for development on the Wilkerson private land. This meeting is taking place tonight at 6 p.m. While I am not a local resident of Chino Valley, our organization, Arizonans for Community Choice, supports local renewable energy development and service. I am aware that despite a pending ordinance to prohibit utility-scale solar and storage in or near the town, mainly due to misinformation about risks of solar energy, the Wilkinson Solar Project can proceed under a conditional use permit. AZ4CC, her organization, is a strong advocacy organization for expansion of renewable energy projects that serve local communities, cause minimal impact to local ecosystems and habitats, reduce reliance on fossil fuels, confirmed by climate scientists from local universities around the world as the #1 cause of greenhouse gas emissions and an increasingly warmer, drier planet. Prospect 14 has performed due diligence to build a system designed to interconnect directly to APS's nearby substation. No long-distance transmission construction is required. This is essentially a smaller scale solar energy project that is perfect size footprint for Chino Valley and will serve the local citizenry. The solar project will have minimal environmental impact, use minimal water, which is an important consideration for Arizona. Does not emit greenhouse gases or other polluting gases, and is less expensive per kilowatt hour than fossil fuel or nuclear energy. As many energy policymakers and advisors also stated, we need to embrace the growing demand for electricity with an all-hands-on-deck approach to sourcing all forms of sustainable, clean, and renewable energy. The arguments from
Shelley,
solar...
Your 3 minutes is up.
Okay, I will submit, there's just one last paragraph. I'll submit this into the record.
Thank you, ma'am. You forgot to start the clock. Okay, so seeing as how nobody's been walking in the door, this will be the end of the cards being submitted. Also, when you step up to the microphone, please state if you're a Chino Valley resident or a resident. You don't have to say where you're at, but I would like to know if you're a resident of the town or not, for the record. Okay, Paul Hawksworth.
My name is Paul Hawksworth. Hopefully my accent doesn't cause too many problems. We actually bought the property from the Wilkinson Family Ranch House on 3905 Old Home Manor Drive. Our concerns continue to be diminished property value. What will happen with regards to, whilst there is conditions with regards to glare, with regards to setbacks, etc., there's no real concrete proof or evidence. We did have a discussion with Prospect 14 today about those things, and there's really no there was no finality to it. There's, we have no idea what a glare policy is. We have no idea whether the install will cause other problems within the property. The access to the property is something that each day we will be passing half a mile of solar, probably 20 or 30 feet away, whether it be in or out of the house. With regards to a view shed analysis, again, we've no information as to with regard to what a view shed analysis is. From our property, we will be able to see probably half of the install. We're slightly higher, looking down on it. As you mentioned earlier, correctly, about being hooked up to APS, we have a feeling that if it does go ahead, that this will get sold to APS or someone similar. The company does have a history of doing that. Prospect 14's website, they have sold in recently. They've sold several of these facilities to outside companies. If it goes to someone like APS, then we won't have local people as a neighbour. We will then have an organisation that will they care about what actually happens to the property in the future as local people would. So I just like to enter into record that we still have the same concerns as we had before.
Time. Oh, I'm sorry. No, you have 2 seconds left.
We still have those have been entered to the Development Services Department. We still have those same concerns, and whilst there are some of those have been talked about, setbacks, for example, is something that hasn't been talked about. That when it went through Development Services initially, it was all about property line and property. It's now changed to residence. We bought the property to create a legacy property for our family and for our children. And what sort of a legacy will we have if we can't build properties, for example, build them a couple of houses where we want on our land because of this installation? So I'd just like you to take that into regard when you make your decision tonight. Thank you very much for hearing me out.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Next person is Andy Tobin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. My name is Andy Tobin. I live at 20755 North Hackamore Lane and have been there for over 25 years in Paulden, just outside of Chino Valley. My children went to Chino Valley schools. We worked here and live here, and we're very grateful for this great opportunity. So I work for a company, a nonprofit called Western Way, whose function is to promote energy in all of its sections, whether it be nuclear or gas or solar, but it has to be affordable. It has to be available and make sure the communities have ongoing reliability, and it has to also be safe. So I spent 3 years on the Arizona Corporation Commission, and I was 8 years in the Arizona legislature. I am also a consultant for Yavapai County at the legislature, although I'm here in my private capacity and not as a member of the Yavapai County team. So first off, I want to appreciate your service as volunteers. Many of you I know and have known for a long time. And having been in your chair, I can appreciate these very valuable considerations you have. We are fast approaching in Arizona a true power crisis. I know there's a lot of conversation about which way these atoms go. Arizona's needing all these atoms. Not to say that they can't end up on a power line, as you said, Mr. Chairman, and end up somewhere else. Who knows how you mix this stuff up in a shaker? But we are reliably short. You're looking at the guy who fought before Congress and everybody else to keep them from shutting down Navajo Generating Station up in Page because we had 3 towers up there representing 2,300 megawatts of power. Not so much because I promoted coal, but so much because the technology at that time was not prepared to replace it. And today I can tell you that it is, and it is much better. But we knocked the coal plants down anyway, and we're short. And this community in Yavapai County and the state of Arizona is desperate for power. I wrote the Arizona power plan, and it was never approved because nobody believed we would ever get this far. if you go back and take a look at it, we're almost exactly where we predicted, and much of it is right here in these solar fields and this battery science that has occurred. I will assure you that we have a long way to go with other power, nuclear, and et cetera, that I hope one day we'll all be replacing it. But in my meetings back in Washington, I can tell you we're a long way away from there. And I do not want to see brownouts and slow down in Chino. And I want to be very respectful also of the Wilkinson family. They're our neighbors too. And this has been an incredible opportunity for them to have final moment, for them to have been so respectful of this community and their neighbors. And I would favor this project, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
We can't ask them right now, Mr.
Gotcha.
Tobin.
No worries. Thank you very much, and thank you for your
bet.
service.
Mr. Gary Denny.
Gary Denny, I own a business at 2879 Arizona Trail, El Charro Norte. Hey guys, I'm gonna make money if they build that solar field. If they don't build that solar field, Jay Wilkinson, Jasper Newton Wilkinson was a friend of mine. These are not blood relatives. He wouldn't go for it. He wouldn't have it. He was the man that owned the property where Mike Fan has his subdivision. And while he was in the hospital with a heart attack, his wife divorced him and sold it to Mike. Okay, so as far as doing this thing for the Wilkinson family, Jay wanted to put irrigation out there, raise alfalfa. 25 years for $9 million. My place in 30 years on 2.5 acres will bring you guys $3.6 million in sales tax revenue. 2.5 acres. Grew up in Prescott Heights, right behind Taylor Hicks. There was nothing between Taylor Hicks School and the highway. Looked just like that out there. You have to drive from Prescott out to my place and sit on my back patio to see that. You can't believe the transformation in people when they sit out there and take a deep breath and look at nothing. Robert Persick said in Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance that nature is inviting. What's not inviting are fences and walls and technology. 115,000 square miles is what it would take to make this country energy independent on solar, okay? That's Arizona plus 3,000 square miles of New Mexico. Rhode Island's 1,000 square miles. There's plenty of places in Arizona where you could put 5 states of Rhode Island in that no one could physically see those solar panels. It's out there. It doesn't have to be this piece of ground. There's a place between here and that giant substation at the end of Perkinsville Road where that could go. I watched them haul that transformer out with a truck that could haul 1 million pounds and had 300 tires on it. It's out there. You can make power out there and nobody will see it. That's about all I got. I'm sorry I got so emotional. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your passion. Gary Beverly.
Gary Beverly, I live at 1219 Granite Creek Lane. I'm just outside the notification boundary for this project. I'm a very close neighbor. I walk past this site every day because I walk. I've lived in Chino for 50 years. I've seen a lot of changes here. I think this is one change we need. We use power from the rest of the country all the time. It seems right that we begin to make a little power on our own here and become more self-reliant. That's one reason I'd support this project. The second reason is to respect private property rights. These landowners have a long history and investment in this land, and they want to change the use of it.
You might just go back just a hair from the microphone. It's starting to fuzz out a bit.
Good, thanks. How's that?
Perfect.
Okay. So landowners have a long history of occupancy here in Chino. And they want to change some of the use of their land. They have a right to do that as long as it doesn't impact the neighbors. The neighbors is Chino Valley's industrial park on the south. This is a great place for this. There's a substation on the property. This is, seems like it's all systems go to me. There's a lot of benefits to the town in terms of economics. And so I would support the project.
Thank you. Okay. I might say this wrong, so I apologize in advance. Rhonda Karamong? Karamong, thank you.
Hello, my name's Rhonda Ceremony, and I live at Chino Valley. You guys asked some of the questions I wanted to ask, but I want to know where they got the numbers for the tax stuff, because I don't believe that that much money is actually going to come from this project.
Ma'am,
Oh,
please
sorry.
direct everything up this way.
I don't
Thank you.
believe that that much money is actually going to come from this project. The second thing is Chino's not benefiting at all from the power, no money, no nothing from this project. So what does it do for us? I applaud the Wilkinsons for wanting to better themselves and have this and being patient with the town, but it does nothing for the town. The power that it generates is going to go into the grid, and we're not going to see it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to screw it up again. April Durnett? Durnay. Thank you.
Thanks for hearing me. My name's April Durnay. I'm at 1519 Florida Lane. I am directly across from El Charro Norte. Now, we in this town have had a lot of changes going on. One of the things that continues to happen is we have these changes and we do not get repairs to our roadways. We do not get any of the benefits from these changes. This particular project will benefit the Wilkersons. It doesn't benefit Chino Valley. So what's going to happen is, in the course of a year, our roads are going to get beat down yet again by equipment, heavy equipment, coming and going all hours of the night, all hours of the day. And the only benefit that comes to this is to the Wilkersons and maybe APS later on. I truly do not feel that this project is in the best interest of our community. I am really exasperated by the level of traffic, the level of intensity that goes on in this town now. I lived in a really quiet neighborhood. It's not quiet anymore. It's not quiet. I look out my window or out my front porch, and exactly where that particular farm will be my view. I will no longer get to see the beauty that I bought that property for years ago. And the Wilkersons have been here a long time, but they're not the only families that have been here in Arizona for a very long time. I've married into a family that has been here for a very long time, over 100 years. And they have worked hard. And I and my husband have worked hard and retired onto our property. We have horses. We ride. I ride past that often. I don't want to see that. I don't want to have to stop utilizing Peavine Trail because I can't ride on it anymore because of the level of construction going by me. I'm also a member of Chino Valley Equestrian Park. What's the changes that are going to be going on for them? We need to consider all of these things and not just the Wilkersons. They're sure they are lovely people, and I'm sure they'll find something to do with their 600 and something acres. I don't think this is it. I think we're running a risk. Fire. These people are not going to be around to contain what happens when that goes bad. They're not going to be around. They're going to be gone.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, I'll get this one right. John Gillespie.
Good evening, Chair Merritt. John Gillespie. I'm not a resident of the town. I'm actually do work with the applicant on this project, and I've been involved as the town has been reviewing its solar ordinance and aspects related there. I had just a few thoughts that I can also let Sarah speak to a few of them. I think in terms of placing appropriate conditions on a project, there's a lot of things that can happen, because really what's before you today is a CUP, and the purpose of a CUP is this detrimental and is it compatible with the surrounding properties? So with a typical notice area of 300 feet for a CUP in the town, that's the lens that we usually are looking at these CUPs. We've expanded that with this project because it is 280 acres and there has been interest in the project. But what is the effect going to be in the immediate vicinity? And what I'm seeing on this is proposed as a
Mike, step back from the mic. Thank you.
What's proposed here is really actually a use that conserves the rural nature of this area. It doesn't extend infrastructure for water and sewer. It doesn't widen roads. It doesn't increase traffic. It doesn't create noise. It doesn't have lead to population increase. So these are the type of rural aspects that are really good about the Wilkinsons wanting to keep this as a legacy property, keep it in the family, keep it to be able to support their ranching operations. And so in terms of fitting into the neighborhood, we really think that this is the right location for a proposal like this. I think it's also important, there's been lots of talk about large kind of mega projects, like the Draconis projects. That was a huge project. This project is a tenth the size of what Draconis was. It really is a smaller scale project that fits into the character and the existing zoning, the existing surrounding, and there's still work to be done because of kind of the nature of needing to bring the project now and have it heard by the council. Some of this is moving a little quicker than I think anyone would like, but there's still an opportunity to meet with the neighbors and to mitigate some of these concerns with landscaping. One of the ones I'm hearing is roads. There can be a condition of approval added to the project that says, take an inventory of the existing surrounding roads and return the roads to that condition after your construction is done. That's a condition of approval that I think makes a lot of sense and that could be tied to the project. So I would propose for your thoughts on that. There's, in terms of the benefits to the town, they're real tangible community benefits that the project wants to provide, and it's engaging with the neighbors. It wants to engage with you, and it wants to engage with the town council on what those specifics are. Peavine Trail improvements. I think that's a great idea that we're next to the Peavine Trail. We're close to there. Let's require them to make some improvements to that landscaping, create horse trail access, trailhead improvements. Let's refine those aspects. There's been talk about pickleball courts or the water facility. All these things, let's look at them. And just one last
Thank
thought
you.
with that, Chairman.
You know, we've heard you speak about 4 times about this thing, and we're good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You bet. Did you get another paper up
I
there?
did.
Thank you. Thank you. Clinton Skeens.
Thank you. I am Jay and Vicky Wilkinson's son. I own a third of the property that we're speaking of now. The reason we chose solar is versus developing or putting low-income housing in or anything like that is it does not affect the land as much. We can still run antelope through. We can still have open spaces. I feel for the neighbors and their view, but you know, it is what it is. We have to be able to support our land, excuse me, And without some kind of an income, we just cannot do it. I thank you for your consideration in this matter. Our family has been here for over 100 years. My mom and my dad did everything for this town and this community. I raised my kids here. I love this place. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. All right, that's the end of the cards. Anybody else feel like they need to speak? All right, so I'm going to close the public portion of this meeting, public comment portion of the meeting. Okay, so does anybody on the commission have questions for staff?
Yes, please. Just to clarify, because I was new onto the board after we had passed the ordinance at the town council before. And I remember previous discussions in regards to public utilities. If APS were to purchase this project, do they have to come and get a cup, or because they are a public utility or a private utility, are they able to expand upon it without coming through the town?
So first of all, the CUP runs with the land. So if this was approved and the land was sold, the CUP that is approved would be approved runs with that. If anybody wants to expand, they have to come back.
Okay, even APS.
Even APS.
Okay.
So they wouldn't have to, because of their agreement with the town, they would still have to come back before the zoning commission to get another portion of the conditional use permit.
Yes, it's a public utility. We define a public utility, and they are required to come back through the town.
Okay, good question. Thank you. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
How do we correct the problem of Chino not getting anything out of it? All the money's going to everybody except Chino.
Well, because the ordinance wasn't adopted, that was our best way to actually get community benefit. You'd have to add a condition to this.
I would like to say that was addressed in this hearing where I mentioned the developer talking to you and reaching some kind of an agreement.
Okay, talking to me and having it a condition of approval are two different things.
I understood that the town really couldn't do that legally according to recent legislation. That we couldn't say, because you're doing this, we would like to have this tax.
I would challenge that.
The only reason I say that was brought up on the other project. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Do we get an answer to the question?
The answer.
Do we have any?
So the answer is
We don't.
the town, as part of the conditional use permit, there can be a stipulation added that the applicant come back to the town with some requirements that the town comes up with. That's why Vice Chair Pasiak said that they should go back and talk to town staff about what could be done with it. So that's there isn't an answer because it hasn't gone anywhere yet, but that would be the direction that it would go if it was approved. Did I say that good?
Correct, with a condition.
All right. Anybody else have questions? All right, so we're going to come to the applicant's response to the public comments. Ma'am, would you like to step up and respond to anything?
Just a couple of things. So like I said, we are open to establishing a vehicle for community benefits. We would want that to be defined ahead of moving forward with the permit. But it is definitely something that we've, continuously come to staff about and ask them, how is it that we can give back to Chino? Because the way the tax structure is, you don't receive anything, and we don't think that that's fair. We're not trying to avoid that. We're actually trying to promote that. So I just wanted to say that. The tax breakdown, I know someone had a question about that and didn't really believe or understand the numbers that, we put up on the screen. It was done by a tax professional. We could have it redone. It was a couple of years old, so it'd be open to doing that. And then the final thing I wanted to say is, so I gave you that list of community benefits that we came up with. At the beginning of this whole process in 2022, we had talked about road improvements as well. Roads are very expensive, and so the ability that we have in our budget, it just would be a drop in the bucket for what needs to be done out there. We're absolutely okay with maintaining the current condition, but repaving miles of road is just, unfortunately, I wish I could say that we could do that, but I just don't think that it's feasible economically for the project. But we definitely don't want to mess them up any further through the construction. And just to add to that a little bit, there's really only heavy traffic, if you could call it heavy, when we're delivering the equipment, and that's within a couple of months. After that, we don't really use the roads. It's just a guy in a pickup truck quarterly come in to check and make sure everything's okay and working properly. So it's very minimal use after the initial construction period.
So there's been some comments about the fire, the battery danger, that sort of business. Which was one of the huge concerns with the Draconis project. Even though this is smaller, it still contains the same products in it.
Yeah, it comes up a lot, and understandably so. I mean, it's a scary thing, right? It's in your community, and you see all these headlines. If you look at the statistics, the risk of fire is very low. And if you look at other types of energy generation projects, it's much, much lower than those. So while, a house is at risk for electrical fire, like anything electrical is at risk for an electrical fire, but it is rare, and the technology has improved a lot in even just 3 years. I can give you a lot of information on that if you'd like it as a follow-up, kind of the data sheets of what we'd plan to use. I'd definitely be open to hearing more about, protections we can put in place on site that, make everybody feel a lot safer in the community.
All right, anybody else?
Could you, I guess I'm a little confused in regards to the batteries. We're hooked into the APS substation, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only time they can collect energy is what? When the sun's up, right?
Solar, yep, the
That's
panels.
when it's going in there.
Yep.
So what is the purpose of batteries? You talked about storage and saving it for more, but if it's going directly into the system, we're not collecting battery or solar at night, are we, to store into the batteries, correct?
So they'll be AC coupled, so you can actually charge from the grid. So if APS decided they wanted to charge it, they needed to store some excess energy from somewhere else, they could do that and then deploy it whenever they need it. A lot of power is used in the evening. So when people are getting home after school, after work, and that's when solar starts to wind down. So really, if there's extra energy coming off the grid during the day from either the panels or from the grid, it's stored, and then in those high peak power use times, they can use that energy. And then, it's going to be either a 4 or 6 hour storage facility. And so that's really going to take care of that peak usage.
Okay, on average with Prospect 14, what is the length of time you guys carry a project before you're selling?
So we are actually a development firm. So we typically take them through the permitting process, and then the long-term owner will take over at that time and operate them. It's usually like a larger firm like Goldman Sachs or something like that. But all of the project contracts, so the permits with the town, the contracts with the landowners, those carry through with the project company. So we set it up as a project company. So those obligations that we sign up carry through for the life of the ownership.
So you basically assist them in building the solar facility, but your company does not maintain it after that?
Right. Yeah, we partner with construction firms. DEPCOM came and spoke at, I think, the solar ordinance hearing. They're a big firm in Arizona. They've done a lot of APS projects. So we partner with them to build it. And then, yes, there'd be a long-term owner, whether that's APS, probably not the case in this circumstance, or another company.
So who is the company you guys are partnering with this project?
So because we don't have permits yet, we have not found a partner.
So you build this thing on spec.
build it on spec. Can
In
you?
other words, you build it with the thought that somebody's going to buy it. Right now, you just don't have a buyer. Is that correct?
It's part of the development process, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And that's, we did solicit to APS. They chose to go with the power purchase agreement. We're still negotiating that. So it's still not guaranteed whether they'll do the PPA or, maybe we'll have to submit it again next year and they choose the BTA. So that is still something that's up in the air. But, that we always go with credible companies that are going to be able to support the life of the project, because we're signing this project up for long-term contracts and they need to be able to support those.
So who actually builds it? Prospect 14 or the company you partner with? You just do the paperwork aspect is what I'm gathering, right?
We do the development work, so the environmental studies, the survey, the field diligence, permit. I came from the construction side of things, so I do come from that side. So I look at my projects as a lens, coming from how they are actually put together. But no, we partner with DEPCOM and they've built,
And
gigawatts.
is that your primary partner that you partner with?
Yeah, so they actually were with us in our submittal to APS. So they were part of that submittal and provided,
And who is that again? I'm sorry.
DEPCOM,
Could you spell that, please?
DEPCOM.
Okay. I was trying to determine if it was a P or an F.
Anybody else? Thank you, ma'am.
No problem.
All right, so we're going to close the public portion of this meeting.
Before you start, Mr. Chairman, could you make sure everybody has their microphones on?
Sorry.
That's okay.
Thought I talked loud enough as it was.
I was
Well,
hearing him
we're
pretty good, so I
recording
didn't
it.
question it.
We can hear you in here, but the recording of it doesn't always pick up everybody's voices if your mics aren't on.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're at the portion of the meeting where I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion.
All right, Vice Chair, have at it.
I recommend to forward CUP 2025-01 to Town Council for consideration based on staff report, information provided during the hearing, and subject to the conditions in attachment A.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Can I just clarify the motion? We're clarifying to just
Forward it.
to the town council without us making a vote on yay or nay, correct? Okay.
Yeah, we're not making any recommendations to the council. We're just passing it forward to them. So maybe the motion needs to be clarified to say that.
You just clarified it?
Okay, so just to make sure everybody's on board here, we're not voting recommendation of approval. We're voting or denial. Thank you. We're not recommending either way on this. We are just recommending that it gets forwarded to town council to let them deal with it when it comes their way. Passing the buck. So, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
I'm new here. Is this something that we usually just pass the buck?
We normally don't pass the buck, but
Okay.
in this particular circumstance,
Literally.
in public, really, in this particular circumstance, because this issue has been bannered back and forth, we approved the last one that went through with me being the only abstaining vote. This issue really should just go to the town council and have them take care of it, because all we can do is recommend at this point. And it's very clear that in the past meetings that we've had, there's been much vocal opposition to any commercial solar panel projects, mostly based around the battery systems. And there's been some statements made, which I'm not going to go into great discussion on, but I don't believe that the solar industry is quite as carbon friendly as what they might want people to think. Things have to be dug out of the ground, smelted, molded, and formed. That all requires energy. And the solar systems that are produced, the batteries require lots of extra things that have to be done besides just putting them in and snapping some fittings to them and making them work. So it's my opinion that this motion that was made tonight to pass it forward to town council to deal with is perfectly appropriate. All the years I've been on this zoning commission, we have not done that, but tonight I think it's very appropriate that we do it that way.
Have a question?
Yes, sir.
If this motion went either way, if we recommended to the council, yes, or if we recommended to the council, no, it would still be up to the council.
The zoning
We would-
commission does not have the final say-so in anything that comes before it. We can only recommend.
So if a recommendation was made, it would be what we felt from this current meeting, from the knowledge that we gained from it, and that would be it.
If that was the decision or the decision to deny as well. And the last time we did this, the council made their own decision with it, and that is their prerogative because that's the way the rules are written. So maybe there's an opportunity here
May I say
to
something?
do some things necessary.
If I may say something, I feel that we need to make a recommendation. That's our duty to the town. I feel it's very important that we make that, even though it may be changed by town council, which is, like I said, their prerogative. But I think us as a commission here, we need to show that we support or we don't support what's being done. I think it's important that the town of Chino sees that and that we're backing and supporting whatever it may be. So even if we're not decided on, I think that our recommendation would be important either way to show that we have validity in a sense.
And I hear what you're saying, and I'm not disagreeing one way or the other with it. What I'm going to say is we have a motion and a second. Now we can vote as soon as all the discussion is done, and thank you for your input. It was very appropriate. Right now, our job is recommendation only. Possibly in the future that may change. So I'm going to have a roll call vote, please, unless there's further discussion.
Clarify what we're recommending?
Okay, so we're recommending that, we're recommending that this thing gets forwarded to town council for them to decide what to do with it. That's what we're recommending. That proper?
That is exactly what you said.
All right. So roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Morabito,
I oppose.
Commissioner Pizzi,
No.
Commissioner Ditta,
No.
Commissioner Zamudio,
No.
Commissioner Metters,
Yes.
Vice Chair Pasiak,
Yes.
Chair Merritt,
Yes. So we have,
4 noes.
okay, so the motion has been denied.
So you need another motion.
Okay. So we'll ask for another motion.
I make a motion that we,
You have to, if you're gonna motion to approve this, then you need to read off of the paperwork that they gave us.
I make a motion that we do not recommend to the council approval of CUP 2025-01 for the project 14.
So you're recommending denial
Yes.
of this project?
Yes.
Okay, do we need to word that in a more proper fashion?
I just heard that he's recommending denial.
Yes.
That's fine. We
Do
got
we have
that.
a second?
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Now we can have more discussion. Anybody? All right, roll call vote to deny this moving forward.
Commissioner Morabito,
No.
Commissioner Pizzi,
Yes.
Commissioner Ditta,
Yes.
Commissioner Zamudio,
Yes.
Commissioner Metters,
Abstain.
Vice Chair Pasiak,
No.
Chair Merritt.
So I say yes. Now where are we at?
Now we have 4 yes, 2 no,
Okay,
1
so
abstain.
the motion is denied to go forward. That's our recommendation to town council. They can take care of it from there.
Okay, the recommendation was denial. Okay.
All right. This was a very tough call and a very tough subject. And thank you all for being patient with us and polite. So we're going to move forward to item E, which is action items. I don't believe we have any of those.
No, we do not.
Okay, so information items. Does the staff have information for us?
I have a handout that came from an attorney in Florida, and it's titled, "Why Can't I Talk to My Local City and or County Commissioner About a Development Project?" And it makes it really clear when you're talking about an ordinance that you can talk to anybody you want and get as much input as you want, and you don't really even need to declare that because you're creating the policy. When you're talking about a specific project, like today is a specific project, you're applying policy that's in place to a certain place, a project, a person, a property. And that's when you need to be very careful about not talking to a bunch of people, getting information that the rest of the commission isn't hearing, and then you come into the hearing already have your mind made up when you haven't even heard the staff report being presented or the rest of the people that are coming to share information with you. So this is a great article. It just talks about the difference between those two and why you guys declare before each project that you hear whether you've had information or not from other people. It's important that if you hear something from someone that you're able to share it with the rest of the commission so they have the same benefit of the same knowledge. So I just wanted to hand this out to you tonight before you leave.
Thank you. That'll be very helpful. It's one of the tight ropes that we walk
Yes.
all the time. Okay, so is anybody on the commission? This is your opportunity to speak about things. Anybody like to say anything? All right. So now it's the opportunity for the chairman to say some things. Sometimes I speak at length, sometimes I don't. But what I am going to say is that tonight we watched the American process in full bloom. I'm grateful that people showed up here to talk about this. A lot of times we sit in zoning meetings when there's only us sitting here and the town manager sitting in the back is the public. So thank you all for being here. I will say that the commission, the heart of the commission from all the years that I've been on it is always to do the very best they can for town of Chino Valley. We get lots of information. We're all common folk just like you guys are, and we do the very best we can, and we appreciate any of the support that we get. Okay, so now is the opportunity for the public to speak about anything that was not on the agenda tonight. Meaning if you want to come up and rail about Washington, D.C. or Phoenix or something, you're welcome to do that, but you can't talk about anything we had on the agenda tonight. Would anybody like to step up to the microphone? All right. We've satisfied all of the opportunities for people to talk. I would entertain a motion to shut this thing down.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, commission. Thank you, public. Thank you, town staff.